was in Virginia City, in Nevada territory, came the miners, some to live and some to die. Where the gold and silver beckoned, they would all get rich.
Hi, this is Joe Curtis. Welcome to Virginia City Truths, No Myths. And we are now starting with episode 1. So what we're going to talk about today in terms of Virginia City history is how these people got here, how these people arrived on this forsaken mountainside in western Nevada under the belief that there must be gold here. This comes about in between a period of 1849 to 1859 when people start showing up here. The way that worked is what we look back at, and we can see that as these people came through this area, making their way to California to pursue their fortunes with the California 1849 gold rush, they stopped in a couple of places, and particularly the Dayton, Nevada, which is down below Virginia City a little ways. And as they stopped there, they usually would rest for a day or two or three or whatever, rest their animals, rest themselves, gather supplies for going over the Sierra to California to seek their fortune there. In that process, since they're going there to do placer mining, looking for gold in rivers and creeks and lakes and what have you, they began working a few creeks that were in the area. They began to find some gold over a 10-year period of time, from 49 to 59. These folks would kind of work their way up what later became known as Gold Canyon, and they would find gold. And more people would get word of this, and the only way they'd get word of it is that somebody else had to pass that information on, either taking a horse and riding all the way over to California and say, hey, we stopped just west of Dayton, Nevada, and which was at that time was just a very small settlement, and we were doing some panning in one of the creeks there, and we found gold. And so the word gets out there. So, like I say, between that period 49 to 59, as the California miners get into that 1859 era period of time, a lot of the gold claims in California and the activity was beginning to wane a little bit, or people were beginning to realize that there was not much opportunity for them. So they began progressing back over towards here into western Nevada, into what at that particular time was called the Washoe Diggings, because this was known as the Washoe area, and the diggings, of course, relating to the mining opportunities. This, of course, being a desert without a whole lot of water, became somewhat of a problem. So as they worked their way up Gold Canyon, which had been from Dayton up through what later became Silver City, and then on up into the Gold Hill area, there was a small creek that ran down through that area, and it had some waters in it at the right periods of time, and they would be able to pan that, and they found what they called color. They'd find color, or they found gold. When they got to the top, there was a couple of individuals that actually found a good body of ore. This predates, and actually at about the same time, there's another couple of individuals that are in the area, two brothers, Hosea and Alan Grosh, who were doing prospecting down below Silver City and in the area what was known as Spring Valley area. They actually came across some materials that they weren't sure what they were, and they subsequently had them checked and assayed by people in the Nevada City area of California, actually. And they learned that it was a rather valuable body of ore, but it was silver. Of course, that's what Nevada becomes famous for, was the silver, as opposed so much to the gold. That's another old story about silver versus gold in that era. But as they find the gold, and they work their way further up into Upper Gold Hill, they become aware that this is a big thing. This has great potential for gold. So as a matter of the people traveling back and forth between Virginia City and California, the Mother Lode area of California primarily, or Sacramento, over in those areas, the word gets out that, hey, there's another big find of gold in the Washoe diggings or the Virginia City area. So they begin coming back. They begin their trek over the mountain and heading for Virginia City to make their fortune here. They get here, and sure enough, the gold is being found, silver is being found, and they begin to populate the area. So this is 1859, 1860 now, and by 1861 there's as many as 500 people living on the site of Mount Davidson. In that era it was known also as Sun Mountain, and as well as Mount Davidson for a particular individual that was an engineer in the area, I believe it was. So the population begins to grow. You start to have shacks and people living in small structures that they built with local wood that was here, and it grows quite rapidly and becomes a well-populated community. So between 60, 61, 62, and even into 63, you've got people and building everything from schools to even churches or religious service locations. A lot of them were living in either shacks or even a little bit of a cabin of some sort, and they even dug holes into the sides of the mountain, that like a bear's den sort of thing, that they would actually make that some living quarters for their efforts. The people were quite industrious in that period of time. At that early 1861, 62, 63, there was a lot of wood in the area to be had for building, for firewood, and what have you. Later on, many years later, and we'll get into it much later in later episodes, where we talk about the wood being taken out of Lake Tahoe Basin and brought over here for purposes of all sorts of things, from heat and that sort of thing. So we've got all these people coming in here. So now, one of the things, of course, any mining camp, you look that up and find out about it, you'll see that probably the most important thing that they brought as they began to populate the area was what? A saloon. It was, you'll find any mining camp would do that. So now we have these people here. We have them beginning to work, beginning to find gold, beginning to find silver, and getting that process going. So as we move forward in our next episode, episode 2, we'll look at how the community, as a community will become known as Virginia City, progresses and develops as a sophisticated community, so that eventually it actually becomes a corporate environment of mining. So I invite you back for our next episode, episode 2, which will be As the Community Grows, and we'll discuss that and have more pictures to show you in relationship to that. So we'll see you next time on Virginia City Truths, No Myths.
It was in Virginia City, in Nevada territory, came a miner's son to live and some to die. Where the gold and silver beckoned, they would all get rich, they reckoned. They would strike the richest pay dirt of their lives. In Virginia City's mountain desert high, it was to Virginia City with its Comstock Load discovery. Early